Hello and welcome to BYJU'S IAS. Before we start with our today's session, we have an announcement. The much awaited Target Prelims 2021 crash course will start from today at 7:30 p.m. Hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and set the reminder at 7:30 p.m. where we would have Sir taking the first session of Indian polity. From today, we will take you through the fascinating journey of some of the important preliminary questions which can be asked in your preliminary examination 2021. So let's get started and look into the first article. The first article is speaking about Eastern Economic Forum. What is this Eastern Economic Forum? Why did Russia establish such a forum? What are the advantages for India in this forum is what is this article all about. Before we understand what is this forum all about, let's have a brief idea with respect to the background. When you consider Russia, there are two parts of Russia. One is the western part, the other is the eastern part. When you consider the western part, this is closely integrated to the Europe. So when you have the western part which is closely integrated to the Europe, it means that the capital is present close by to the Europe, and at the same time vast amount of money is invested in this particular part. The infrastructure is comparatively good when it comes to the western part of Russia, where you also have the capital Moscow. Now we have to take into picture the eastern part. When you consider the eastern part, this is closely integrated to Asia. This particular region also has very less infrastructural support, and at the same time the climatic conditions are also not suitable for living in this particular region. Now if you look into the statistics, according to the 2010 census, there are about 8 million people in the Russian Far East. Why are there very less number of people? That is because of the climatic conditions. When you look into the Russian Far East, it can be divided into the northern part. It can also be divided into the southern part as well. When it comes to the northern part, it has the Arctic Siberian climatic conditions which make it uninhabitable to live in this region. But when it comes to the southern part, some regions are livable. So basically, when you look into the Russian Far East, it can be divided into northern part, it can be divided into southern part. Since the northern part is closely linked to the Arctic Siberian climatic conditions, it is very tough to live in this region. But when it comes to the southern part, it is livable, and as a result, because of the worst climate conditions, what we have is less population in this region. Where less population? In the Russian Far East. Added to this, because there is very less population, infrastructure has not been developed in this region. Why? That is because most of the people live in the western part of Russia. They are not living in the eastern part of Russia, and as a result of harsh climate, sparse population, increasing out migration, poor infrastructure, and there is no connectivity, the infrastructure in this region has been very less, and as a result, what you see is that people are moving away from this eastern part towards the western part, or some of the people have also moved out of Russia as well. So what are the concerns for Russia? As of now, when you look into this region, you have very less population. As we discussed, according to 2010 census, it is about 8 million. What are the concerns? The concerns is that this particular region has tendency or history of separatism. Basically, because of the underdevelopment, because of the poor infrastructure, they do not have the connectivity to move from one region to another. There is lack of development in this region. There is a possibility that a certain section of people in this region have separatist tendencies. They may spark secessionist sentiments as well, and as a result, Russia is skeptical about China. Who is the neighbor here? It is China. So what they feel is that China may engage in activities where there can be separatist forces who might be present in the eastern part of Russia. To overcome this particular issue, to ensure that there is development in the northeastern part, in the extreme east of Russia, it led to the establishment of the Far Eastern Economic Forum. Now let's discuss this issue of separation from the historical perspective. When we look into the historical perspective, we have the outer Manchuria, which is currently the Russian part. When you look into the inner Manchuria, it is part of China. When you look into the inner Manchuria population, it is about 100 million. So what is the population that is present in this part? It is about 100 million. As we discussed, the Russian population in the Far East is about 8 million. So this is where Russia is apprehensive. So Russia feels that because the inner Manchuria part has a population of about 100 million, there is very less population on the Russian side. There might be people who might move from inner Manchuria to the outer Manchuria where they have the historical connection. So what might happen? There might be people from China who might enter into Russia and they may invade this particular region, and over a period of time the demography in this region may change as well. So what is Russia thinking of? Russia is thinking that if more number of people move from this inner Manchuria because of the historical context, historical connection, cultural affiliation, if they move towards the outer Manchuria, which is currently in Russia, there could be problems, because in the historical perspective there have been disputes that have occurred in the Manchuria region, and China has in the past dominated this particular region, and there have been contentious issues between Russia and China as well. Yes, it is sorted out, but when you consider the historical picture, there have been issues between Russia as well as China, which is why Russia is apprehensive when it comes to the historical picture. Added to it, when we discussed about the infrastructure, we did discuss that Russia does not have much of good infrastructure when it comes to the eastern terrain. So what does Russia do after the year 2000? What does Russia do? It requests many Asian countries to invest in this eastern part of Russia. But one of the major countries which invested in Russia happens to be China. About two-thirds of the investment when it comes to this region has been made by China. So what happens whenever there is investments made by China, and if there are people working in this particular area, it will only be the Chinese workers. So the Chinese are people who have invested in this region. It is the Chinese workers who are working in this particular region. Large scale foreign direct investment has been made by China in this particular region. So Russia feels that there might be illegal influx of the Chinese nationals into the Russian Far East. This may trigger xenophobic tensions, and ultimately there can be change of demography which can result in demographic invasion. So as a result, because in the history there have been disputes between Russia and China, taking this into picture, Russia believes that there can be separatist tendencies, secessionist tendencies, which means that this particular region might also slip away from Russia, is the apprehension of Russia. In order to overcome this separatist tendencies, in order to make sure that other countries also invest in this particular region, they establish this Eastern Economic Forum. So what is this Eastern Economic Forum? One, to prevent the separatist tendencies. Two, to make sure that other countries also invest in this region. And three, to develop this region, foreign investment is what is required. So Russia here brings the foreign investments into the Far East region of Russia using this very forum called as Eastern Economic Forum. So this happens to be an international forum where it is located in the Far East region for the purpose of encouraging foreign investments into this part. So this particular forum will have the summit conducted every year. This will have leaders who will come up. They will speak on this forum. You will have business personnel who will come up. They will speak on this forum. There will be panel sessions. Then there will be bilateral talks and agreements. And as a result, in this particular forum, we have our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has spoken in the virtual summit in the year 2021, where he has acknowledged that India and Russia relationship have stood the test of time in this year's summit of Eastern Economic Forum. Now the question is, what are the advantages for India when it comes to establishing the relationship between India and Russia on the Eastern Economic Forum front. When it comes to India, we know for the fact that this particular region that we see has a lot of hydrocarbon reserves, which means that this particular region is rich in oil. It also has timber, it also has natural gas, it also has gold and diamond in this particular region as well. So this means that if India is able to make investments, which it has done in the past by investing about $1 billion for the development of this region, what we would be able to have is the relationship with Russia, where we would be able to explore the hydrocarbon reserves and other resources that is prevalent in this region. That's the first advantage. The second advantage is with respect to the Indian labor. What happens? Russia is known for shipbuilding industry. What happens? Because India has in the past given about 1 billion for the development, it also means we would have labor exchange where Indian labor would go and work in the developmental projects in this part, especially in the Far East Russian region. So what do they learn? They will learn how to build the ships. They will also exchange the information about shipbuilding as well. So over a period of time, Indian workers could benefit from the employment in the labor intensive sector like shipbuilding and mining in the Russian Far East. Apart from this, it is also very important from the geostrategic position as well. How? We did discuss about how China is planning to come up with its One Road One Belt initiative, which is also called as the BRI initiative. If India is making and agreeing to a sea link between Vladivostok and China, it is making inroads into South China Sea. It is able to enter the Pacific region, and it is also countering China's One Belt One Road initiative. This means that it will help India. How? On one side, when China is planning to enter the Indian Ocean region and make changes in the Indian Ocean region, we would also be suitably able to enter the South China Sea and would be able to carry on with our trade relationship as well. Why is Russia supporting India? That is because of two reasons. One, as we discussed, if all the investments are made by China, that will not be good. They can also remove as well. So what Russia requires is diversification, and at the same time, what we have also discussed is the fact that it will also offset China's overwhelming presence in this region. So when there is more diversification, more countries will also invest. So this could also help Russia as well. One, India is making investments, other countries are making investments. So there is developmental prospect that comes up, and it is not the monopoly of investments of China alone, but it will be every other country. So it is a balancing act for Russia when multiple other countries also invest in this region, which is why understanding the importance of this Far East region, back in the year 1992, India did also establish a consulate office in Vladivostok. In the present context, we have Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who said that Vladivostok was the confluence of Eurasia and Pacific. Indian history and civilization, the word Sangam has a special meaning. It means confluence or coming together of rivers, people, or ideas. In my view, Vladivostok is truly a Sangam of Eurasia and Pacific, and India will be a reliable partner of Russia in realizing this vision, says the Prime Minister of India. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says experts flag diversion of fresh water from Brahmani River. From the preliminary examination point of view, there are two important points. One is that the river Brahmani flows in the state of Odisha. It is formed by the confluence of Shank and the South Koyal rivers. These two pointers are very important from the preliminary examination point of view. The Brahmani River, along with river Baitarani, they form large delta before they flow into region of Bay of Bengal. So before they enter the Bay of Bengal region, they form large deltas in this particular region. As a result, what you see is development of mangroves in this particular region. The article makes a mention of Bhitarkarnika. This Bhitarkarnika region is a Ramsar wetland. It is spread over 195 square kilometer. It is home to about 62 mangrove species. Besides, it also has about 1600 saltwater crocodiles in this particular region. So where do these mangrove forests develop? They developed in the brackish water. What is this brackish water? we have the sea water which is full of salinity. Then we also have the fresh water as well, that which is taken by the river. So when this fresh water mixes with the sea water, what it develops is the brackish water. So whenever there has to be mangrove trees that have been grown in this particular region, what they require is this brackish water. So this requires a certain amount of sea water, this requires a certain amount of fresh water. A mixture of this will create the brackish water, which is very healthy for the growth of the mangroves in this particular region. Added to this, there are many types of species, the crustaceans, so on and so forth. These also live in the brackish water as well. But in spite of these advantages, there are concerns voiced under this article. What is the concern? The concern is, as we have discussed, there is fresh water that flows into the Bay of Bengal. But this fresh water of the Brahmani River is currently being diverted. Diverted where? To all the industries in and around this particular region. Then we also have the coal mines, steel and power plants, Kalinganagar Steel and Power Hub. They are drawing enormous amount of fresh water. So when you look into this particular region, there are different industries, steel making companies, and these steel making companies require enormous quantities of water, and for every ton of finished steel, about 1 lakh cubic meters of water is required, which means there is reduced flow of fresh water into the Bay of Bengal region, which means that this particular region will become more saline in the future. As a result, it could be a threat to the mangrove vegetation. People in this particular region may have made a living out of the crustaceans, the crabs, the fishes, so on and so forth. If there is very less fresh water, these crustaceans and other fishes may live this particular region, and ultimately it may impact the livelihood of farmers and the fishermen as well. There could also be man-animal conflict as well, where crocodiles living in this particular region may enter the upper areas, and this may also result in loss of lives and the animal crocodile conflict. Finally, because of this brackish water, in the past there have been species of kingfisher which have come to this particular region. Birds have come to this particular region, but because there is an increase of salinity in the present situation, these kingfishers may not come in the near future. So these are the concerns voiced under this article. Therefore, it is the responsibility of the state government to ensure that there is adequate flow of fresh water into this particular region so that they can safeguard the mangroves, the species in this particular region, prevent the man-animal conflict, and at the same time take care of the people's livelihood in this very region. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Now let's look into the next article. This article says Japan's PM Suga steps down, sets stage for new premier. What is this article saying? The Japanese Prime Minister Suga is set to step down, and as a result, what we will have is a new Prime Minister who will be appointed in Japan. Suga, who took over as Prime Minister after Shinzo Abe resigned because of the ill health, has seen his support sinking. Why? Because of two reasons. One is because he was not able to control the menace of COVID-19. That is why his ratings have dropped, and at the same time, people were apprehensive why Olympics was being conducted in spite of the environment of COVID-19. So because he was not able to control the COVID-19 and he went ahead and executed the Olympics where people were not happy about it, there has been a drop in the ranking and in the rating of the Prime Minister, which is why he may resign as the Prime Minister of Japan. This is one part of the article. The other part of the article is speaking about Five Eyes. Why are we discussing this? That is because we have Suga, who also wanted to enter this intelligence sharing relationship called as the Five Eyes. Five Eyes is basically nothing but an intelligence sharing relationship between whom? It included Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United States, and United Kingdom. These five countries came together. They created a platform for intelligence sharing, and Japan also wanted to be part of this Five Eyes under the prime ministership of Suga. Now the question is, will Japan seek for such an admission or it will withdraw this particular process is what we have to wait and watch. From the preliminary examination point of view, do remember the origins of the Five Eyes goes back to the Anglo-American Accord of 1943. Initially, we have United States of America and United Kingdom who entered into this particular agreement. Then other English-speaking countries like Canada, Australia and New Zealand became part of this particular relationship and they called it Five Eyes because there are five countries, they share intelligence amongst each other, network security threats so that they would be able to bring an end to the security menace. That is why Japan also wanted to be part of this Five Eyes. Had it been included, it would have been part of the Five Eyes turned into Six Eyes. Why did Japan want to be part of such an initiative? That is because of China's growing military and cyber capabilities. In order to counter China, what they wanted was the intelligence, which is why Japan wanted to be part of this Five Eyes. Japan further is part of the economic multilateralism where it engages with United States of America, Australia, Canada, New Zealand on the economic and trade related basis. So which is why it wanted to enhance on this very prospect and become part of the security multilateralism in order to counter China, in order to make sure that it receives information about intelligence, security threats, which is why Japan wanted to join the Five Eyes under the leadership of Suga. So whether they will continue with this particular process or not, we have to wait and watch during this process. Now let's look into the next article. This article says estimating the deaths due to COVID-19 in Chennai. The article here is speaking about undercounting of deaths due to COVID-19. When it comes to COVID-19, we saw the first wave. We were able to overcome this menace and we were able to reduce the impact of first wave with time. Then we had the second wave as well. We saw the disastrous consequences of second wave where large number of people passed away as well. We were able to overcome this. We were able to overcome during this particular period. And what people also predict is that there will be third wave as well. During all these waves that we have seen of COVID-19, one thing that we are witnessing is underreporting. Why underreporting? That is because of multiple reasons. When you look into India, you have multiple people who have been suffering from comorbidities. What are these comorbidities? In case there are people who are already suffering from some ailments, it can be heart issues, it can be lung infection, it can be kidney issues. They already have a compromised immune system. As a result, when COVID-19 strikes them, they would have recovered, but because they already had a pre-existing disease, they might have passed away after recovery from COVID-19. Such people, when they pass away, their numbers are not taken into account, which is why the author says there is undercounting. This is the first point. The second point is about the testing. What happens? Let's say, for example, there is a region. This region does not have the testing facility. Let's say a remote region where they do not have all the doctors, they do not have the prescribed mechanisms to test whether the person is COVID positive or not. If there is no testing, how will we know the numbers? If there is no testing and if the person has passed away, it means we are not able to collect the number. So because there is no testing in some of the remote areas and if they have passed away, again there is a presumption of underreporting. The third is where people are not even aware about this particular disease. So because we are living in a particular era where information is the new data, but in spite of it, where people do not have the connectivity, if it is spread and if they have passed away because of it and they are not aware that it is because of COVID-19, this has also resulted in undercounting as well. So these are the reasons why undercounting may have happened in India, says the author. But why is this very important? Why is the data important? That is because when you consider the larger picture of public policy, when you have to take care of the people, when you have to safeguard the rights of the people, as right to live is ingrained under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution, you have to understand for the fact that the government will have to supply the protective gears in the hospital. It has to provide oxygen supply as well. It has to provide the ventilators as well. So during this particular period, if the government does not have enough data, all of this may not be provided by the government. So what is important is that the government helps the people, but if they do not have the data, They won't know which area is infected, how many people are infected, which is that area, and as a result, the government may fail in providing the protective gear to the hospitals as well as supply of oxygen in this particular region. If there is no data, it also means that people start moving from one region to another. As and when they start moving, it will also start spreading to the community as well. If we do not have the data, ultimately when it spreads to the community, we would not be able to take care of the people as well. And at the same time, this is also important from the historical picture and the statistical viewpoint, that similar instances, if it occurs in the near future, the government may go back to the data, look into it, and see how this particular disease started spreading from one area to another. So this is the importance of collection of data, and if there is underreporting, it is the people who are bound to suffer, says this article. It is this that we have to understand in reference to this article. Discuss the importance of Russia's Far East region to India on the strategic and economic front. Diversion of fresh water from Brahmani River could pose a grave threat to the famous mangrove vegetation. Examine. So please write all your answers on the comment section. Visit our website, peer review, write as many answers as possible. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.